Okay, and welcome back to the lightning talk round. Andrea, your hat looks fantastic. Can we get a bit of a close up there? What does it say on it? Oh, it's a card. Got it. Okay,
Yeah,
very nice.
yeah.
Okay, so second lightning talk of the day. Andrea is going to be talking about why we should never leave Wonderland. This is a 15-minute talk. Just before we kick it off, I want to give another shout out to our sponsors. Packet, an Equinix company, Container Solutions, of course, Rancher, OfferZen, the CNCF, Honeycomb, Aqua Security, Kinfolk, Giant Swarm, and CloudBees. You can go to the sponsor tab, Umbrella, and either request a meeting with them if you've got something you'd like to discuss that's specific, or they all have a chat and they're all giving away all sorts of interesting things. So make sure you go over there and say hello to them. But without any further ado, I need my canned applause so I can introduce Andrea. Here we go. Take it away.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Mark. Yeah, so I'll be talking about, let me just get this sorted. Yeah, there we are. So I was going to talk about why we should never leave Wonderland, which seems quite an apt title for this conference. So just to quickly introduce myself, I am Andrea Dobson and I work for Container Solutions as head of talent, but my background is in psychology. So today I'll be taking you through some interesting points that are being touched on earlier today as well by Ken. Talked a little bit about curiosity, but I'll be talking about these three things. Firstly, I want to introduce the topic of purpose, and why it's so important in the age of curiosity and seeking our, exploring, like Alice did when she looked through the looking glass and she fell through the rabbit hole. Then I want to be talking about how that relates to the seeking system. And as you can see between brackets, it's asleep, yes or no? And then I'll be talking about how that relates to how we can wake this seeking system up and why we should do it, most importantly, but also how we can do that. First of all, let's do a quiz, right? We've not done any quizzes so far today, so let me be the first one to do a quiz. There are 4 questions here, and I would like you to answer those questions using a number, giving them a number ranging from 1, which is never, to 6, which is always. And once you've done that, please add answers from question 1 and 3 together, and then add the answers of questions 2 and 4 together. So I'll give you a second to do that. And let's go to some of your results. So questions 1 and 3 are the questions that will inventorize how hedonic you are in your life. And hedonic happiness is the pleasurable type of happiness. And if you had a score of higher than 8, great, you're pretty happy. You're only 5% of the population is higher than you. So you're in the 95th percentile of scoring in this type of happiness. Questions 2 and 4 are more related to what we call the eudaimonic happiness, which is the meaningful type of happiness, the purposeful type of happiness. And if you have a total score above 7, congratulations, again, you are in that top 95 percentile. Now we know that it's good for your health to be happy. And it's great to have high scores on both of these types of happiness, but we know that most people will not have that. And I want to talk you through how this is related to your biology. How does this sense of purpose relate to us as human beings? And therefore, I want to show you this model. And we can see here that a sense of purpose is an urge, as is experimentation, as is self-expression, and is exploration, which is what pushed Alice go through the rabbit hole. So there are these urges, and those urges therefore activate the seeking system. Now here's that seeking system, and that seeking system has urges again that makes you want to explore, express yourself, do more experimentation, and probably feel a bit more purpose. So we can see here, it's almost a closed loop system that constantly reinforces itself. And we can also see, as a result of those urges, we feel zest, we feel curiosity, enthusiasm, and we feel more creative. Now, what is that seeking system? Most of you would have never heard of this. Funny enough, the seeking system is something everybody has. It's our very natural impulse to explore the world. And on top of that, when we have an active seeking system, we release dopamine in our brains. And we all know dopamine is nice, it's great, it's that little reward type of feeling that you get when you do something that you enjoy. So, how don't we all feel this seeking system on our daily lives? Maybe you do. If you score very high, you might feel this constantly, but some people don't. Some people don't have this creativity anymore. They don't feel any purpose, any sense of purpose. And that's why I mentioned in my opening statement, has your seeking system maybe gone to sleep? And how has it gone to sleep? Why has it gone to sleep? In order to understand that, it's good to look at your organizational life and work. And we know that rules and regulations usually don't make you more creative. They make it even harder. They make experimentation harder, and they make monitoring easy, which is great for them, but not so much for us as human beings. Just adjust my hat. Great. So organizational life has had a negative impact on how our seeking system has become dormant, as we can say. Now let's have a look at another model to see how that works. We can see here on the top left, we can see our seeking system with the urges I've earlier explained, which is exploration and the self-expression. And then we see the bottom left, the scientific management method. Not know if a lot of people are familiar with that method. It's a type of management method where they used a lot of control systems to make sure people made the project as quickly as possible. It was introduced in the industrial age, and it worked really well when you're producing a lot of the same products. Let's say, for example, on a conveyor belt, it was very easy to monitor and predict and measure how much product was coming off the end of the conveyor belt. Scientific management eliminates self-expression. It was their goal to eliminate self-expression from the people, and make sure everybody was doing the same. They wanted to standardize. And how did they control their employees? By using fear. They used fear of punishment, of loss of potentially loss of earnings or loss of your job, to make sure everybody did what they had to do. It was great to measure, great for the organization, and potentially now for stakeholders, because it was great to see what was coming at the end of the year. Not so great if you are an employee. We can see that if we experience longer term sense of loss of control through this scientific management method, we can see that people become helpless. And this turns into learned helplessness if the situation persists. And we can see, for example, if people keep trying to change the situation they are in, and it's not working, that they become learned helpless. And that has massive impact on us as human beings. Those consequences are bigger than we can often see. We can see disengagement and sometimes effects on the mood, on how people feel, but also on their physical well-being. So here we have this scientific method that used punishment to control their employees. We also know from research that these urges respond very negatively to fear. they are being inhibited. That means, for example, if you have ever, gotten praise, it usually didn't land. It took a while for you to, to realize, oh, this is someone's praising me. But for example, if someone's giving you a negative comment about something, that moment, that comment, that could linger for a longer time than that praise would ever. So you can see that the seeking system gets inhibited by fear. Not a great thing. This is also the root of so many organizations' failure to innovate. The scientific method was designed and it started in the Industrial Revolution, where all that type of work that we did was really easy and measurable. But nowadays, we work in a very complex, unpredictable industry. We don't know what the end result is going to look like of a project that we're going to release. It might be looking like this. It could also be completely different. Most of those problems are so complex that we need multiple voices. We need creativity. We need a lot of innovation, probably a lot of experimentation. And we need people's, and you need purpose, because sometimes it gets really hard to, if you can't find a solution, you need some sense of, okay, we're going to get through this because I'm doing this because I want to change the world. So that sense of purpose is really, really important to get you through those habits. It's the light of the end of the tunnel. Although Adrian Mohad says it could also be an oncoming train. But let's not focus on that. It's just going to be about that sense of purpose that we feel. So a quick recap, right? A quick recap of everything that we talked about. So seeking system, natural impulse of wanting to explore, wanting to experiment, wanting to do things, which creates creativity, feelings of zest, etc. This has been, I'm getting a sign, I need to go quicker. So this is how it works. So it's being suppressed by the way we've been running our organizations. If you work in an organization like this, you might really recognize this. We know that it's not helpful in an industry where we need so much of the urges of that seeking system. For example, in our industry, where innovation is a part of our daily jobs. So that comes to the how. How are we going to get it back? How are we going to, if you have a seeking system, how are we going to get you back in a feeling of purpose, feeling of wanting to experiment, etc. There are a few pathways back into your seeking system. And I can discuss a few of them here as I don't have much time. So I will talk to you through two of those pathways. And one of them is obviously rediscovering your sense of purpose, which is one of the most important parts of that urges of that seeking system. Important is that if you start keeping a journal, if you start registering the situations or the tasks that you have found very satisfying, and I'm talking about that eudaimonic type of happiness, not the hedonic type of happiness, the ones that give you fulfillment, for example, mentoring young engineers, or things that give you energy. By keeping a journal, you can rediscover those activities. And then secondly, try to prioritize those tasks and try to incorporate them as much as possible. For example, if self-learning is something that fulfills you, try to incorporate those by reading books as much as you can, listening to podcasts, etc. We also know that if we can contribute to others feeling better, that gives us a sense of purpose as well. It fulfills us with meaning. So focus on relationships. And we've sometimes forgotten to do it, but we can go back to playing, experimentation, we can activate our dopamine system. And if you're slightly worried that those experimentations are going to run wild in your organization, then make sure you provide some frameworks and boundary setting in which people are allowed to experiment and fail and learn. I know I've only had a really short time to go through this talk. So if you do want to read more about the things I've talked about today, then I would really recommend these two books, Alive at Work by Dan Cable. He's a neuropsychologist and he describes the seeking system in a very nice way. And then The Fearless Organization by Amy Edmondson, who talks about innovation and why it's so important in nowadays industry. I think that's it, Mark. Is that all my time I've got?
That's all the time you've got. But first of all, let's get some applause going on. There we go. That was very, very well done in a short time frame. So thank you so much there, Andrea. Lots of good stuff to think about. I know that we've got the Container Solutions sponsor area where people can reach out for a chat. Also, you can go to containersolutions.com. Reach out there if you'd like to know more about that. I know they're hiring at the moment. I'm sorry we need to rush through this, but Andrea, thank you so much. I've got to get to my other track. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.